The Gathering.
What was that?
There was another flash of wrath. Izaiah turned and focused.
Within a mile or so. Barrels of it, but blurry. Hard to place. It's him. It's Alex.
I found him! The fellas are here! The old Medolian with near elephant ears shouted in a crowded business park, though no one seemed to notice. The people of Prescott were still distracted by the heavy thunderstorm that had just passed moments before. A behemoth that came and went so fast it seemed to hiccup from nature. Izaiah hurried in the direction of the power burst, by far the strongest Eve signature he'd ever felt from a human. Meanwhile, unease crept into his gut regarding every decision he'd made so far in the mess called the Joseph debacle.
If I was wrong, so help us all.
He'd arrived in Prescott the previous night, following a stint in the African wilderness searching for Joseph.
But didn't find him. Sad to say.
When he sensed the awakening of Bennett's rapture and the force of creation cementing itself into the soldier, the Medolian knew his plan had gone off the rails sooner than they usually did and had to abandon his search.
I thought it would take those boys a lot longer to figure out their Eve. At least, I hope so. Been trying to keep them away from all this. The Josephs and the cults and what have you. But it seems we might actually need the fellas after all. Might need everyone, in fact. Those boys aren't the only mysterious power to show itself recently in the Eve. And frankly, the other one gives me goose pimples. The very bad kind.
Izaiah hightailed it back to the sip and drip, fighting his panic. He found the gas station empty, and with Bennett's signal faded, there was no way of locating him, forcing Izaiah to wait for another signal to show itself, which took less than a day. Alex's transformation was much more dramatic than his counterparts, providing a perfect signal flare.
There you are! Alex, I hope you're okay.
Shifting as close to the source as possible, not knowing that he was in Arizona until a road sign told him so, Izaiah began his search. Presently, finding the edge of town, he kept going. The boots on his feet, barely holding together, crunched on the wet desert sand as he marched on, being sidetracked only once when he noticed a faint signal nearby. Searching a patch of smoldering bushes, he came upon Alex's blue baseball cap, which must have soaked up a bit of wrath before being discarded. The thing was blazing hot. Izaiah dusted it off and tucked it safely into his coat. When the Medolian found a large mushroom-shaped tree in the center of a field, and the human delegates seated at its trunk, his unearthed senses viewed two flames, one of cobalt blue and violet, the other of crimson and copper. They were talking as Izaiah approached, and he heard Bennett warn Alex of Joseph. "You should listen to him," Izaiah said. "I know this isn't the best time, but I need you both to come with me. Now." Neither human said anything at first, making Izaiah kind of nervous. "Been searching everywhere for you. You boys have, really changed since I saw you last." Alex rose and sprang forward. "Not another word! No more lies!" Stopping a few feet from Izaiah, he clenched his fists. A thin layer of orange flame surrounded them, coursing up his arms, following primary veins to his elbows. "Your wrath's growing," Izaiah said with a proud smirk. "Get this shit out of me," Alex grumbled. "We should get you a shirt. Are you cold?" "I want it out! I'm not asking," Alex cried. Izaiah wanted to calm him down before igniting his signal further. "I know what I did seems horrible, and in a certain light, sure, I can see it too, but—" "You left us!" Alex roared. The flames seared.
Don't try it, Mr. Barker.
But he did. The teacher leapt, hurling an uncoordinated attack at Izaiah, who nimbly dodged the blows and thrust out his cane, producing another near-translucent emerald sphere, releasing a chaotic blaring noise like radio static. Alex was thrown away, landing on his back in the mud, coughing up gray smoke. Slouching over his cane, Izaiah brushed himself off. "Control those emotions, Mr. Barker." "What was that? I felt shut down," Alex moaned, picking himself up. "Malos, neutral Eve. What made me?" Izaiah said. "I know this is all very confusing, and I wish we had more time to explain, but we don't." "I don't care, old man. Please, just leave us alone again. It's all because of you. You're the reason there's nothing left of my life. Do you have any idea what that's like? Could you? I mean, what are you?" Alex rolled himself onto his knees, hyperventilating, pounding scorched fists into the mud. "Why can't I go home?" "Because life is unfair, and so is death. If you need someone to blame, I'm your guy," Izaiah said. "I accept it, but that won't change your situation. Alex Barker's human life ended the night he was shot. I'm sorry. All you have now is the choice of what to do with this new life. Will you help us? I'm really hoping you fellas say yes." "New life?" Bennett coughed out. "So, this all was, what, a gift? To who? Us?" "Certainly not to me," Izaiah replied, a little confused. "I don't remember asking you for anything," Bennett shot back.
This one is turning out to be quite the smart Alec."
"I saw her," Alex said. "My baby. My little girl. Then there was a man. His questions. He wouldn't let me leave. Then..." A look of untethered sorrow filled his face, almost childlike. "You put hell in me." Izaiah knelt next to him, looked Alex square in the eye, and told the truth, feeling utterly horrible he had to. "Yes, we did." "Take it out." "I can't."
"Please, stop."
"I'm not asking." "Alex, I told you before, it will remain in you until you finish this, until the demon within Joseph is back where he belongs, and we can put this particular crisis behind us." Izaiah looked at Alex with a heavy heart, trying again for a comforting smile. "I'm sorry. I really am." Reaching into his coat, he handed over the blue baseball cap. "Here, you dropped this." The teacher clutched the cap in both hands. "You say it's called the Wrath? Yeah?" His lips quivered. What will it do to me?" "Wish I knew." Izaiah placed his hand on his shoulder. "But I will tell you this, young man. I saw you. I know who you are. You're a fine person, Mr. Barker. Nobody has a better chance of wrangling this beast than you. Use it. Help us." Alex hung his head. "I've never handled anything without her. This will only take me further away from my family. I can't do it." "Can't doesn't apply here. If I didn't think you boys could do this, I wouldn't have asked you to. Now, I'm sorry, but we're very low on time." Izaiah couldn't delay any longer. Lifting his cane, then thrusting it down, he performed a shift before either human could argue, having to give it some extra juice upon finding that Alex and Bennett were a much heavier load than the last time he'd transported them through an Eve gate. Soon they were enveloped in salty sea air, and Isaiah's boots dug into cool sand, under a dim gray mass of storm clouds assailing the beach where they now stood. Strident winds swayed groves of fat, colorless palm trees perched on a hillside running the length of the shore, whose branches broke free and soared to the ground, where they crawled along the sand before being snatched away by violent, foam-topped waves. To Izaiah, who was not so sure about his aim or memory, the island smelled familiar enough, which was promising. It had been many years since he and his brethren had used this particular outpost for a meeting, but now was the time for utmost secrecy. Something irritatingly foul was afoot.
Hope they all got the message.
No gathering had ever been called on such short notice before.
Seeing how long we live compared with humans, on-Earth folks tend to operate at a much slower pace. Gatherings are usually called a year or more in advance. Hopefully, the 5 days I gave proved how urgent this all is.
Glancing around, Bennett shrugged, looking happy enough. At least it's not a desert this time. We're in the South Pacific, Izaiah shouted over the noise. Not sure where, so don't ask. Come on, this way, I think. Hurrying down the beach, sticking close to inland, he looked back to find Alex had stopped a few yards back to take his hat off and bask in the drizzling rain, letting his scars sizzle in the early morning air. We gotta keep moving, pal. The teacher put his hat back on and hurried to catch up. Why are we here, Izaiah? I was fine under my tree in the rain. Business to attend to, Mr. Barker. All will be explained soon. Izaiah could barely sense his fellow Medolians. The new batch had gotten quite good at hiding their auras, whereas he'd started feeling too old to keep up with them sometime around when humanity had hit on the idea to pipe water into their homes.
Shitting inside. Never saw it coming.
Business? Like Joseph business? Bennett called over a series of waves ripping across the beachhead. Afraid so. Slippery little snake? Among other things, which hopefully aren't related. Much to discuss since I last saw you. You mean when you stranded us in the desert to die? Bennett asked. Exactly. The trio soon came upon a series of dilapidated wooden shacks dotted throughout a long section of forest leading away from the shore. They seemed to be the work of a local, semi-modern tribe who'd abandoned it. Most of the structures were reduced to rotting piles of wood, but a few remained standing on thin support legs, lifting them many feet above the ground for high tide. Izaiah found a path leading through the shacks, some of which were large enough to house entire families. The three travelers came to a knoll, with a large, seemly hut resting atop a bluff at the end of a trail. Ah, see? Told ya. They're here, Izaiah exclaimed. Alex paused mid-step. It's a cube of rotten wood on toothpicks. Ease your mind, Mr. Barker. This structure has withstood the test of time. I'm sure it's most cozy once you're inside. Izaiah hobbled forward on his cane, and the humans followed. Moving through the last steps of an overgrown path, he made his way up aged wooden steps, through a sheet of rainwater draining off the roof made of leaves and grass, and onto a 5-foot square porch. Shaking the water off his head, he stomped the mud off his boots. You boys are gonna hear a lot in there. Most of it won't make sense, but try to keep up. It may prove useful later. And, for your own sake, I suggest listening mostly. Whatever you say, Alex said. Izaiah opened the door to the one-room shack, revealing a 20-foot square space, both dreary and cold. The walls, merely twisted beams meshed together, let in gusts of frigid sea air, singing with a shrill cry as the shack creaked and swayed under the weight of the storm. Two of his partners were already sitting in the far corner next to a wobbly table and the only window, which was sans glass. Like Izaiah, they wore coats and hoods to keep as low a profile as possible, but unlike him, they did not appear to be transient. Galinthia's and Fabian's garb honored the final soul that had created them, as did many Medolians.
Our kind can't remember the previous lives of those who made us, but were born on Earth, so usually claim heritage of the land of our birth.
All except Izaiah, who had no recollection of his origins, or true age.
You honestly just forget things after a while. Can't even remember when I forgot.
Galinthia's heavy coat, pants, and many adornments were Greek, with a mixture of old and new, featuring vivid browns mixed with flashes of maroon. Leaned back in her chair against a support beam, she appeared to be a bodybuilder in her 40s, with dozens of ear and face piercings, asleep and snoring, with a line of drool running down her cheek. Wearing yellow and brown traditional Kurdish dress, with white accents, Fabian's waistline, pointing straight at the ceiling, stretched his pants to their limit. Eating an orange with one hand and tapping away on an electronic gizmo of some sort with the other, he spoke through a mouthful of juice, never taking his eyes off the device. "Izaiah showed. You owe me 6 rubes," he spat out at Galinthia, who startled awake. What? Well, look at that." She rubbed her eyes. "Guess you can still be surprised after 19 times.
She means centuries. Unearthed slang.
"Hello, Izaiah. Hope you've got a good reason to pull us away from the joys of our fruitless demon search." "Not that I'm complaining," Galinthia said. "I don't know if I'd call it a good reason, but it is awfully important. Where's everyone else? No Dazao? No Ingrid?" Izaiah asked. "I was hoping to see Philomena and her group at least." "You expected a huge turnout with a cryptic message and a week's notice? Are you on the moss again?" Galinthia asked, as though he were a senile invalid.
As she always has.
"We're only here because we truly had nothing better going on," Fabian added. "And 20 rubes says most of the Medolians don't even remember where this place is," said Galinthia. "I had to make sure only those authorized knew of our location," Izaiah said before Fabian could take the bet. "You never know who may be eavesdropping on our memos." "It was you who ordered us to focus all our energy on finding the rogue archfiend," Fabian said. "Now you're telling everyone to drop what they're doing and meet you at a dreary, dead safe house? What if they're chasing a lead? And in case you forgot, we have perfectly good safe houses in Mumbai and Tokyo. Naples is also beautiful this time of year. Or, better yet, we could finally utilize human technology for these get-togethers." "Here we go," Galinthia groaned. "I'm serious," Fabian cried. "You have no idea the advances their electrical engineers have made the past few decades. I can send a message to anyone on the planet in an instant. It's almost as effective as Eve memos. And the shorthand they're developing is quite clever. Take a look. These are called emojis." Fabian held out his gadget, displaying what looked like cartoon drawings of children's stickers. "See? This human has indicated their excitement at an upcoming blind dating television event. They're very social creatures." "Fascinating," Izaiah said. "Just trying to help you communicate with your team. Is that so wrong?" Fabian whined. "There's been nothing but a lot of rumors and hearsay flying around for almost a decade. Seems to be getting faster all the time. It's a lot to take, is all." "Easy, big guy," Galinthia said, patting Fabian's hand and turning ireful eyes on Izaiah. "Though he's got a point. Until this week, our Warden Sentry hadn't sent out a notice in 6 years. Makes it hard to keep everything straight. I assume you called this meeting to discuss the rumor of a measure in the Senate that would bring in humans to mitigate the Joseph job, because that's what I want to address." "Can you imagine?" Fabian sounded close to fainting. "About that." Izaiah stepped aside for Bennett and Alex to join them. Galinthia shared Fabian's jaw-agape stare. Don't tell me. These are... them? He said, his tone unusually timid. This is Alex and Bennett, Izaiah said. They're going to be helping us out for the foreseeable future. Fellas, this is Galinthia and Fabian. Alex and Bennett waved. Hi, said the teacher. Fabian and Galinthia were speechless as Izaiah shut the door and laid his cane against the wall. Blowing warm air into his hands, he noticed a faint crackling sound, yet could see no fire or smoke. Finding small plumes of steam sizzling and rising off Alex, who seemed blissfully unaware, Izaiah turned back to his cohorts. I thought you'd brought a Celestial and an Archfiend along. They smell like it. Fabian took a long sniff and made a PU face. That was the idea, Izaiah said. Imbued with the Eve, they can act as representatives of Eros and Highwind. No Archfiend or Celestial need be involved. Lafler's plan. A clever workaround if you ask me. Let me get this straight. You somehow got Speaker Bannock, Ariel Van Mortis, all of the other senators, plus Gabriel, not to mention Lucifer of Vale, to agree to this course of action, and then you brought the humans here after? Galinthia sounded as though she were teetering on laughter. Mara's going to lose it. I can't wait to see what this looks like. She never misses a gathering. Mara will understand once she hears what I have to say, Izaiah lied. She can be quite reasonable sometimes. Fabian held out his device, which projected a yellow light, like a fisherman's net. It seemed to scan Alex and Bennett.
Fabian and his gadgetries. Silly things to imbue with Malos.
When the light shut off, Fabian frowned at the screen. Their eaves are strong, but their shades are unusual. Never seen anything like them, he said. Excuse me, but we're standing right here, Alex mentioned politely. Sorry, fellas. You might want to get used to this kind of reaction from unearthed folks, Izaiah said. Don't get me wrong. Most of them are friendly and would welcome you with open arms. They'd love to hear about you and get to know you. Maybe even show you around. But there's gonna be some who will be uncomfortable around you. Maybe even a little offended. Offended? Bennett snapped. What the hell? Why? Nobody wants humans walking around with buckets of Eve in their veins, Galinthia said. You guys make this stuff. No accounting for what would happen if that engine inside you got supercharged and then broke. Been making people twitchy and on edge ever since the rumors started flying, which apparently are true because nothing makes sense anymore. Yeah, well, we didn't choose to be a part of this, lady, Bennett snarled.
Oh, Mr. Hunter, why?
And they talk back? I'm having a hard time processing this, Izaiah. Fabian held his chest to control his unnerved breathing and retrieved his device from his pocket to calm down. The one he'd put away just seconds before.
Gonna have to take that thing away from him.
Bennett seemed almost pleased by the news. Hey, Al. Sounds like we're famous. I can honestly say I've never wanted that. Alex's body was still sizzling like a plate of fajitas. So, I take it you're also... Medolians? Medolian centuries, kid. Galinthia laughed, pulling out one of several knives on her belt to twirl in her hand. Glittering prizes, Izaiah. I can see why you picked them. I'd say we've done pretty damn well considering the circumstances, and we can stop with this kids' table bullshit, Bennett said, somehow even more bitterly. Fabian moaned, rubbing his temples. Make them stop! Galinthia growled and rose quickly from her chair to approach Bennett.
Play nice, Gale.
If I didn't know better, I'd say you were nothing but wrath, Galinthia said. But there it is. Rapture. Asleep. Can you do anything? Come on, show me something. Even the little one can make sparklers. What about you? She asked, eye to eye with Bennett, who remained silent. That's enough. We're all on the same team here, Izaiah said. Can't wait to see how this plays out. Galinthia sat, twirling a knife around the tip of her finger, continuing to look the humans over with pitiless eyes. She's not nearly as threatening as she comes across, Izaiah said. In fact, she's one of the cheeriest nihilists you could meet. Just don't get your hands too close to her mouth. Retrieving a wool blanket lying on one of the chairs near the table, he hobbled over to Alex and handed it to him. Maybe best to cover up and chill out for now, The teacher's eyes darted from person to person before he accepted the blanket and tossed it over his shoulders. He and Bennett entered the room fully and settled into the open corner as a quiet, somber mood settled over the shack.
Brr, not liking how this is going so far.
If this is everyone, we should get started, Izaiah said. Before I tell you why I called this gathering, are there any updates? Have either of you heard anything regarding our guy? If we'd found the demon, don't you think we would have told you? Galinthia snapped. Gale, please, Izaiah begged. She rolled her eyes, letting Fabian answer. I did manage to speak to Janusz about a year ago, before the human delegate rumors started. His human company has 7 more buildings. 7! Did you know that? Anyways, he swore he spotted another squad of celestial elites moving on Earth, but couldn't get enough proof to present in the Senate. If Highwind is still sending agents down, Eros is doing the same. I guarantee it. And if both the majority party kingdoms continuing to break the covenant wasn't enough fun, we've also gotten more reports of Raytheon wannabes in southern Europe. No idea where they're coming from, or who's bringing up this new batch. Still no sign of a proper Moloch. As soon as one shows up, I'd be happy to put their head on a plate for you, Galinthia said with a dashing smile. That would be lovely, thank you, Izaiah said appreciatively. She nodded. You got it. The front door opened. A familiar figure in a dark gray and cyan-striped cloak stood in the entryway, a long staff slung on her back.
How does she sneak up like that?
What are they doing here? Mara said with the damp tone Izaiah was expecting. Alex and Bennett looked at him for reassurance. I know our rule on gatherings, but this involves these fellas, Izaiah said. I figure they got a right to be here. I insist they leave. Mara remained steadfast, her arms folded tightly. You don't seem too surprised to see them, Izaiah said. Are you going to kick them out nicely, or should I do it my way? She pressed. How about putting it to a vote? Izaiah suggested. Pointless. I see no reason the humans can't stay. We have to use them, right? So let's get on with it. Some of us have unmotivated lives to get back to, Galinthia added with a snarl. Mara made no move, but the room was in silent agreement with the knife wielder.
Mara's more bark. Gale's way more bite.
After a tense pause, Mara huffed, stepped inside, slammed the door to the shack, and marched to the only empty corner. Drawing her staff, she jammed it into the support beam and leaned on it, tightening her cloak and pulling her hood down. Of all the Medolians, Mara looked the most like she'd stepped out of a history book, circa 14th century BC Israel. Appearing like a human and wearing contemporary Earth clothing in order to fit in had never been a priority for her. Excellent! Izaiah clapped his hands and passed a smile to each corner of the room. We can begin! As I'm sure you've all heard by now, the Joseph mandate has changed. Hang on, Mara said. One more is joining us.
What? Who? I don't sense any.
Not a second later, another eave gate opened outside. The blinding flash of light poured through the shack's gaps, faded, and the door opened with a creak. Chloe, the youngest Medolian, at just under 1,100 years old, entered. Born in the guise of a human woman in her 20s, with short red hair, she was still wearing, after many years, a soiled 18th century English sea admiral's coat. Beneath that, she wore a vest with orange highlights, a black shirt, pants, and heavy boots. As always, since the day she'd slain the captain and taken his sword, it swung by her side, her Eve-imbued tool of choice. Stepping through the door as quietly as a mouse, she appeared more hunched and drawn in than usual.
What? Am I late? Did I miss something? I'm so sorry. I was searching Senegal, as ordered. I've been trying, but I still haven't found any sign of the arch.
She spotted Alex and Bennett and recoiled, her hand on the hilt of her sword, ready to draw.
Why are a celestial and archfiend present?
They're not. These are Izaiah's humans, Galinthia said as dry as burnt toast.
Humans?
Chloe asked with a panicked squeak.
From the mandate? I don't understand. What does this mean?
Galinthia shrugged.
Means we're all going to die.
Chloe stepped away to join her and Fabian at the table, keeping suspicious eyes on the humans, as though they might lunge and bite her.
Still so shy and wary of the world.
Though remarkably powerful for her age, Chloe had proven difficult to train, and Izaiah had been quite thankful when Mara took the task upon herself.
She doesn't think I should be trusted to raise the new batch.
Though for reasons beyond anyone's control, Mara had been forced to abandon Chloe's training before finishing, always intending to return to it in a later century. None of the new batch of Medolians had had as hard a time accepting who they were as the dread-tinted prodigy, Chloe.
Deep down, she's always wanted to be human. Part of her always will.
Pay young Chloe no mind, fellas. She's always a little skittish at first. She'll warm up to you. Or not. Now, I want to thank those of you who made it. I know credible information has been scarce, and we've hardly been able to keep up with the mandates coming down from the tribunal. You know, these meetings used to be almost festive. Hundreds of us back then. Of course, that was before most of you were around. Those days seem like they could have been yesterday. Izaiah, Galinthia shouted. Right, he course-corrected. Just saying, we only get to see each other every few hundred years or so, and I just wish it could be better. You know, tell some jokes maybe. I've heard some good ones recently. For instance, have you heard the one about the incontinent frog with a paintbrush? He reached in his coat pocket and snatched his green notebook, but to Izaiah's surprise, the Medolians groaned in unison. Trust us. We'll let you know when we want your jokes, Galinthia said, tapping the broad side of a knife against her brow, as though considering jamming it into her skull. No, you're right, Izaiah agreed. There's not much to laugh at lately. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've noticed we aren't getting any stronger. No new centuries born since Chloe, which means the supply of Malos from Earth is dwindling. Heck of a time for it to happen, too, because I got a feeling we're about to need all the help we can get.
What are you talking about?
Fabian asked.
You sound as frightened as Chloe when she hears a barium guard coming down the hall. Go dive into Malum Bay,
the youngest shouted back.
Stop this now! We don't have the time!
Izaiah boomed.
I called this gathering because 6 days ago I sensed something unsettling, and I can't stop thinking about it.
I haven't sensed anything out of place. Galinthia sounded skeptical.
It's so subtle it might fly under your nose, but I know there's one here who felt it.
Izaiah turned to Mara.
I don't know what you're talking about.
She refused to even look him in the eye.
There were 3 of them. Distinct, dark presences. Talking. Something like wrath, but much worse, Izaiah said. Only present for a moment before they disappeared, but long enough to fill me with dread. You're more sensitive than I. You felt it, I'm sure. Do you agree it was a warning?
He hoped his second in command would be on his side for once.
Help me out here.
But Mara stayed stubbornly silent. Assuming this power source exists, what do you think it was? Galinthia asked.
I'm not sure, but the demon being sighted nearby suggests they might be related,
Izaiah said.
We still don't know why the nameless archfiend took the boy's body in the first place, though I suspect we may soon. My gut is telling me to expect the worst.
What does this have to do with the humans? Aren't they our biggest problem right now?
Fabian asked, finishing off another orange.
Not only do we still need to find and capture Joseph, but now we have to bring them along with us? Does the tribunal know what they're asking? We should march in there and demand to be heard. Don't think that'll work,
Mara said.
Word is the tribunal is going dark. Might even be already.
Fabian gawked with a hunk of orange peel dangling from his mouth.
A shutdown? You're sure? What about Trivium City? Haven't been back in a while, but I trust my sources,
Mara reaffirmed. Fabian's face turned as pale as a Nashwin banana.
But that could only mean...
Yes, Highwind and Eros have severed communications. Thousands have already gone back to their kingdoms,
Izaiah said.
I fear what either of the rulers will do if Joseph succeeds with his plan, whatever that may be.
Well, if the demon is trying to start a war, seems like he's going about it in all the right ways, Galinthia said. Wait, go back. Tell me about this war, Bennett inquired. You say if he's not arrested soon, a war between heaven and hell may break out?
We don't have time for this.
Mara was clearly losing her patience.
We need to stop guessing and...
Hey! Bennett screamed, getting the room's attention. You all are playing some fucked up games with our existence, and I think you should explain what's obviously an important part of the puzzle. Honestly, I'm asking as nice as I'm capable.
Okay, big guy, pump those brakes,
Izaiah said, hoping to stall Mara from murdering Bennett.
I'll tell you the story as best I can, as hastily as I can. The war we're speaking of is called Infurious, when Lucifer of Vale tried to overthrow Highwind by using the beast in a bid to bring all of Unearth under his control, and failed. He was still of utter importance, however, needed in order to keep the beast of Eros at bay. Only Lucy knows the secret, and a balance must exist for life to continue. So a truce was formed between the two great kingdoms, Eros, the kingdom of destruction, and Highwind, that of creation. This agreement was known as the Covenant. It stated no direct interference with Earth. Neither side could make moves to tip the balance. No agents acting on Earth's soil. Humanity was free to flourish in whichever direction it wished. Independent stragglers have occupied the Earth ever since, causing the occasional problem, sure, but otherwise things are quiet, mostly thanks to the fine folks you see before you.
And heaven and hell and everyone in between lived happily ever after, blah, blah, blah. Get on with it,
Galinthia shouted. Izaiah continued, gesturing wildly.
Look, if we merely had a runaway demon to contend with, it wouldn't be much of a problem. But this time is different. A mortal was brought in. A boy. Neither kingdom may interfere to collect him, or the demon, without provoking the other. A representative was chosen from each of the two primary kingdoms. Those are you fellas.
But weren't they supposed to be switched?
Fabian asked, pointing at Alex.
We were under the impression the weak one would be given the rapture and the big one would get the wrath. If so, they might have been able to activate it by now and actually be of use.
Doesn't matter. What's done is done,
Izaiah said, catching Alex's gaze snapped to him and refused to let go, his skin sizzling underneath the wool blanket.
The fellas are here to help.
Then why did you leave them stranded in a safe house and try to find the demon on your own?
Mara asked. Izaiah could feel every set of eyes judging him.
Because I was a fool, he said. I dropped them off near Joseph's last known whereabouts. Technically, I did as ordered, then went to search. I really thought I was going to find him, but still, nothing. Not a sign of him. Then, turns out these two ran into him without even trying.
Ran into him? Meaning Joseph? Galinthia asked, her interest having been piqued. Izaiah gave the floor to Alex and Bennett.
I figure I'll let them tell their story.
Alex pointed an us finger at himself.
Yeah, we met your demon. Nice guy,
Bennett said. You don't really believe this, do you, Izaiah? Galinthia asked.
No, it's true,
Alex said, his modesty giving the story a boost of credence.
At the Raytheon camp. I'd say 200 or 300 miles from where Izaiah left us. They seemed just as spooked of Joseph as we were.
We didn't have much of a chat,
Bennett said.
but the guy smelled horrendous and was disappointed as shit we weren't the brothers or something. Really interested in getting them together.
Brothers? Izaiah asked, feeling his internal warning sensors going off.
Brothers. Why does that sound so familiar?
Yeah, Alex said. Then he took off, trying to find them and leaving us with the riders with white markings. Said he felt something strange recently too, and thought it was nearby. At the time it seemed like nonsense, but now I'm wondering if he felt the same thing Izaiah did.
Brothers. Hope it's not too far back to recall. Come on, think.
Anything else you remember? Anything at all?
Izaiah pressed.
The Raytheons kept chanting something, Alex said. Something like, Bos, Thoros, Theorum. Sorry, I can't remember a lot about that day. It was my first time being tortured.
A light bulb went off in Isaiah's head.
Bos Theorum de Satheron?
Yeah, that's it, Bennett said. Isaiah's skin went cold.
Are you sure? You should be positive. It was Bos Theor...
I heard you. I'm sure, Bennett repeated.
What in the blazes does that mean?
Fabian asked. Izaiah took his gray knitted cap off and scratched his bald spot.
It is found. A language from so far back my mentor had to learn it from hers. Not sure how these guys know an ancient Raytheon language, but it's enough to worry me. Darn. Also, why reappear at the same time, in the same place as Joseph? The Raytheons and Archfiend alike work with no one. It makes no sense.
Not good at all. Who's playing us?
It is found? What does that mean?
Fabian asked, but Izaiah was miles away.
Izaiah?
Yes? What?
The old Medolian was hiding his despondency as the memory came back.
There were 3 signals last week. 3 brothers of Gehenna. Either Eve, please don't let that tale turn out to be true.
He caught Mara eyeing him and tried to straighten up and act casual.
I don't understand. How did the humans get away from the Raytheons?
Fabian asked.
They don't take prisoners.
Everyone looked at Alex and Bennett, who in turn looked at the ground. Mara broke the silence.
Because I got them out.
The others turned, mouths gaping. Galinthia spoke first. You did what?
I took them back to their homes and told them to stay out of this. I was cleaning up Isaiah's mess. Then he decided to bring them back into the fold.
Mara said bitterly. Chloe stood and faced Mara, fighting to keep her chin held high.
The Senate stated the humans were to be sent to collect Joseph with Izaiah. Not us, and not you. I know what the order stated, better than any of you. It was broken long before I arrived.
Mara turned an accusing gaze on Izaiah.
Look at these boys. I know you feel their wrath and rapture taking root,
Izaiah said.
They're involved whether any of us like it or not. Right now, we need teamwork and smarts. Does anyone know where we can get some?
He chuckled alone.
Seriously, though, I'm very worried. We need to plan our next moves very carefully.
What about the Seeress? Galinthia suggested. I'm sure she could help. Just ask her where Joseph will be. Probably could have solved this problem months ago.
No, this isn't Ileana's fight,
Izaiah said rigidly.
She made her choice. We have to respect it.
That didn't stop you from going to her when you needed help selecting Barker and Hunter,
Mara started.
That's enough,
Izaiah interrupted with force.
Then tell us where you're hiding her. I'll go ask her myself,
Mara continued, unabated.
Or I'll go. You can trust me,
Chloe added.
Our deal hasn't changed. I'm the only Medolian allowed access to Ileana, per her own wishes,
Izaiah said.
She's too dangerous a tool to risk falling into enemy hands. End of discussion. Now, let's get back to finding a way to catch Joseph.
How?
Chloe said, picking off a piece of one of Fabian's oranges.
None of us have sensed a panic signal from the human boy.
I think it's clear the possessed body isn't giving off a signal of panic, as he does not seem to be panicking, nor fighting the infection,
Izaiah said.
That we could trace. This host has accepted the Archfiend, allowing it the use of its body indefinitely.
Humans are as vain as any fiend,
Fabian said.
They don't let other spirits run around in their bodies. Odds are the humans are lying, and the boy died years ago, forcing the demon to vacate Earth. And it turns out there's no situation at all. So we should all just go home. It's not like he could continue using the body like a marionette puppet once the soul is gone. Honestly, it feels like we're on a hamster wheel. What are we hoping to accomplish here? Why does no one else see these things?
A flustered red color was filling his cheeks. Galinthia shushed him and rubbed Fabian's shoulders.
I wish your theory were true, Fabian, but I don't think that's the case,
Izaiah started.
Humans are a species that has continued to surprise me, and I see no reason they will stop. When mixed with this cunning imp, who has somehow kept his identity and motives secret, the Union Joseph remains elusive.
It wouldn't be enough for the Archfiend to have cohesion with the boy,
Mara piped in.
We can see unearthed creatures when they possess humans. This one managed to mask his every action all these years, traveling the globe without ever leaving a trace.
Chloe spoke up.
They say Joseph can sense unearthed energies, even in the human vessel. In fact, they say he's mastered many shades of Eve.
Impossible. Galinthia dismissed the idea with a sneer. No Archfiend could learn to channel Malos. Not in 1 billion years.
I'm not so sure anymore,
Izaiah added, pointing at Bennett and Alex.
These two are proving most of our preconceived notions incorrect. They can sense Eve. At least Bennett can. And Alex has shown his rage and the wrath are in perfect sync. They've proven pure Eve can survive in flesh. The imp within Joseph has had years to develop. Who knows what they're capable of?
Then let's get going, Galinthia said, her face firmly planted on the table. Give us our orders. I'm bored and tired of this place.
I think that means we're with you,
Fabian said. The group looked at Mara to acquiesce, who scoffed and pointed the humans out the door.
First, I want them outside. Far outside.
Izaiah sighed.
Sorry, fellas. Mind giving us a few minutes?
Without protest, Alex and Bennett bowed out, with Mara's gaze fixed on them like a hawk until the door closed behind them. Through the window, Izaiah watched them march down the path to the beach as Mara joined the others around the table in the corner.
Those are the humans Ileana helped you find?
Chloe asked, her judgment obtruding.
Hate me as much as you like, but don't hate them,
Izaiah said.
They had no choice.
You did, though,
Mara started.
Of all the mortal deaths every day in all the world, what made these two so special?
You're just gonna have to trust me.
I trust you as much as the public does,
she said, pulling her cloak tight.
She's looking to get a rise out of me. Not gonna happen. With the tribunal shut down, we're on our own,
Izaiah said, stone cold, trying to make a point.
Nothing will start back up until we deliver the Archfiend. It's all on us. Please, Mara, I'm not asking you to like me, just to work with me.
The Medolian gathering continued for another half hour, as each sentry gave their final remarks regarding the plan moving forward. Per usual, Izaiah welcomed all thoughts and criticisms. Though he couldn't get Mara to admit to sensing the three dark presences, a consensus was eventually reached among the team to keep an eye out for absolutely anything unusual and immediately report it via a secure Malos channel.
Sort of a one-way ESP thing just for us Medolians. It's invasive, though, so we don't send them often.
The storm let up, revealing the warm orange light of the sun piercing through the wooden beams into the rickety safe house. Izaiah closed the gathering with their marching orders.
Listen for each other's signals and continue focusing on North Africa. We need everyone, so somebody figure out why we can't reach the other sentries.
I'm on it,
Fabian said, wiping his hands of orange bits. With a clap and a flash of yellow-tinted light, he vaporized the trash pile on the table into dust and wiped it onto the floor.
Thank you, Fabian. I trust you'll figure out what's going on soon.
Izaiah continued his instructions.
If you encounter the imp, only impair it. Alex and Bennett have to be the ones to slap on the cuffs.
Slap what?
Mara asked.
Who's slapping him?
It's an expression. Never mind.
And what will you and the humans be doing?
Chloe asked.
I'm going to take them to Nigel Rowe,
Izaiah said.
He was the first to see and report Joseph to the tribunal, but I have always suspected there was more he did not tell us. Maybe Bennett and Alex will have better luck getting it out of him.
The humans think you'll take them back to their lives when this is done,
Fabian said, sounding surprisingly sympathetic.
You can see it in their eyes. They have no idea what's ahead of them.
I know,
Izaiah said, pushing the thought away, knowing no matter what the future held, Alex and Bennett would hate him.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.